All right, everyone, it's time to dive into the latest scoop because, oh boy, the drama is heating up big time. Let's get into it. You know how there's been talk about Fallon Gobadia accusing Porsha of taking her man, right? Or should I say, their man from Fallon? Well, just a few days back, things escalated big time when Simon got caught up in some serious trouble, including fraud and being in the US without the proper paperwork. Now, he's not just facing the possibility of having to leave the country, but he might even end up in jail before that happens. Now, let me spill the tea. Fallon has been all over social media, throwing jabs and making digs at Porsha, and it's the kind of drama that you just can't ignore. This is the kind of chaos that you need to be keeping an eye on because it's just getting started. And guess what? It seems like Fallon might be getting the last laugh in this whole messy situation, with Porsha Williams and her husband Simon Gobadia. Porsha and Simon are in the midst of some really tough times right now. Just in case you haven't been keeping up, Simon's been caught up in some illegal activities involving credit cards and immigration issues, and let me tell you, it's a whole mess. But wait, it gets even more complicated. The details that have surfaced about him are absolutely shocking. While some folks might feel sorry for Porsha with everything that's going down, Fallon definitely isn't one of them. In fact, she seems to be getting a bit of satisfaction out of Porsha's troubles, seeing it as a sort of revving for what Porsha and Simon did back in 2021. A lot of fans and even her fellow cast members on Real Housewives of Atlanta tried to warn Porsha that Simon wasn't the great guy she thought he was. But Porsha was too caught up in her feelings to listen to anyone. Now, she might be wishing she had paid attention to those warnings. Simon and Porsha initially met while filming the show, but at that time, Simon was still married to Fallon. Before all this drama with Simon and Fallon started, Porsha had ended things with her baby daddy and then fiancé Dennis McKinley. She discovered he had been unfaithful multiple times, even while she was pregnant with their child. Just to give you a bit of background, Porsha and Simon's first encounter happened when Simon was still married to Fallon, who was Porsha's friend. In 2020, Fallon made her debut on the show as a friend, quickly becoming known in Atlanta for her socialite status, while her husband, Simon Gobadia, lived a lavish lifestyle with luxuries like Bentleys and private jets. She was on good terms with Porsha and Samia, and even the other women seemed to take a liking to her, potentially including her in a group trip to the Carolinas. Interestingly, it was Simon who encouraged Fallon to join the show, believing it would somehow benefit her spiritually. This raised some eyebrows because the Real Housewives series, known for its drama and conflicts, hardly seems like a path to inner peace. It made people question Simon's motives, suggesting he might have been seeking fame for himself, given that financial gain wasn't a concern for him. As the show progressed, Simon and Porsha grew closer, despite Porsha's attempts to mend her broken heart from her past relationship with Dennis. Things turned suspiciously quick when Fallon and Simon suddenly decided to end their marriage. Shortly after the season aired, Simon filed for divorce in January 2021, citing irreconcilable differences, a common claim among celebrities. However, he quickly retracted, suggesting they were trying to reconcile. This attempt apparently failed as he refiled for divorce just days later, while Fallon publicly denied any issues, accusing rumor spreaders of being nothing but troublemakers. Yet, the truth has a way of coming out. Eventually, Fallon had to acknowledge the reality. Simon announced on Instagram that they had mutually decided to end their marriage after a year and a half, asking for privacy despite their openness. Amidst these developments, Porsha reached out to Simon, supposedly after hearing rumors of Fallon's infidelity. This move was questionable since Fallon was her friend, not Simon. Nonetheless, Simon quickly responded to Porsha, planning to meet up and confirming his divorce from Fallon by showing the divorce papers. Their relationship took off rapidly, with Porsha publicly declaring her love and introducing Simon as her new partner, effectively ending any pretense of friendship with Fallon. She excitedly shared that their romance began just a month prior, emphasizing their deep connection and their intent to live life to the fullest. For those who are all about the facts, I understand the situation might look a certain way. But here's the deal. Simon initiated his divorce proceedings from his previous marriage in January. My involvement started after their separation, so their decision to divorce is strictly between them. Despite what it might seem, Fallon and I were never really friends, and Simon's divorce has since been finalized. Our decision to be together is a positive step forward for everyone involved. However, this situation raised some eyebrows because Falynn was initially introduced on the show as Porsha's friend. Despite the confusion, Porsha appeared to be unconcerned about the perceived breach of loyalty. According to her, she reached out to Simon on the very day news of his divorce broke. But then, she announced they had been together for a month, which seemed a bit off when you look at the timeline closely. The gap between Simon's divorce announcement and Porsha's revelation of their relationship was just 18 days. So either I'm not great at math, or there's a bit of a discrepancy in Porsha's story. But wait, it gets more intense. Not only were they dating, but they also got engaged within a month, complete with a ring and everything. This rapid progression was especially controversial since Simon was still legally married to what was supposed to be Porsha's friend. This development didn't just catch the attention of fans. Marlo Hampton, another cast member, openly expressed her skepticism about the authenticity of their relationship. Given that reality TV often blurs the lines between fact and fiction for entertainment, when a star from the same realm hints at something being amiss, it's worth paying attention. Then there's the broader controversy of Porsha getting together with her friend's ex, which only adds to the drama. Simon himself is no stranger to controversy, having been married and divorced 3 times before Porsha, fathering 5 children with different women, and being involved in a cheating scandal. He's admitted to infidelity in all his past relationships, which led to speculation about his fidelity to Falynn and whether he was unfaithful with Porsha. Falynn, understandably, was not thrilled about her ex-husband's quick move to Porsha. Considering the rapid progression from their split to Simon and Porsha's engagement, Falynn's frustration seems warranted. She added fuel to the fire by sharing her disbelief that Porsha would be the type to go after another woman's husband, stating she had trusted Porsha and never anticipated such actions from her. Falynn even alleged that Simon had accused Porsha of having slept with one of his cousins in exchange for a Rolls-Royce, adding another layer of complexity to the already tangled situation. I'm not the type to wreck a happy home, because let's be honest, we had our issues. But what gets me is how you decide to end our marriage for someone you couldn't stop complaining about. And to top it off, for someone who's been involved with one of your family members. The fans were all buzzing, eager to see how this twist would unfold in the upcoming season. You see, we all had a feeling that Porsha was going to face some serious backlash from her co-stars. She wasn't exactly on the best terms with some of them, so drama was guaranteed. Porsha saw this coming too, and opted out of the show to avoid the whole mess, even before the new season kicked off. She insisted her departure wasn't out of fear, claiming she'd been planning to leave way before the controversy. Porsha explained, "I wasn't fleeing. And those who really know me know I wouldn't just walk away for that reason. I've faced tough times on the show before and always showed up, ready to film." She added that she'd been contemplating leaving for about 6 months before discussing it with the show's executives, well before meeting her current husband. "I was about to turn 40, marking a decade on the show. It was time to reevaluate my life and my goals," she said. Despite warnings from fans to be cautious with Simon, love seemed to blind Porsha, and she fell deeply for him. By November 2022, they were married in 2 lavish ceremonies, one in Nigeria and another in the US, and they've been solid ever since. Porsha even hinted at their plans to expand their family, aiming for Simon's 6th child and her 2nd. In a surprising turn, Porsha announced she's returning to Real Housewives under her new married name, Porsha Goody Bhala. But before her comeback aired, a major crisis hit. Simon faced serious legal trouble with the US government. We're not talking minor issues here. This was about potential deportation, despite his marriage to an American citizen. The root of the problem? It turns out Simon's temporary residency was obtained through dishonest means, a secret dating back to the 1980s now threatening his future in the US. Despite his efforts to gain citizenship, recent charges from US immigration have made it an uphill battle, revealing a history of attempts thwarted by his questionable past. Rewinding to Simon's arrival in the US in August 1982 with just a visitor's visa, his overstaying welcome turned into a game of evasion with immigration authorities, a game you can't win. Facing the inevitable, Simon chose to leave the US voluntarily, hoping to avoid the harsher reality of deportation. Back in December 1985, Simon found himself overstaying his visa by a whopping 3.5 years. But you know what they say about old habits, they're tough to kick. Fast forward to 6 months later, and Simon's back in the States on yet another visitor visa meant to last 6 months. Predictably, he stayed way beyond that. This time, though, his adventures led him into some deep legal troubles involving banks and credit cards, resulting in some serious law enforcement attention. Surprisingly, Simon didn't try to dodge the allegations. Instead, he faced the music, pleading guilty and accepting responsibility for his actions. Considering he was well aware of the strict stance U.S. immigration takes and had aspirations of staying in the States for the long haul, you'd think he'd avoid any further missteps. However, logic didn't seem to apply to Simon, who found himself tangled in legal issues repeatedly. By January 1989, he was arrested for unauthorized use of a vehicle, and by May 1990, he was back in cuffs for fraud-related charges. It seemed like trouble had Simon on speed dial, with his record growing thicker by the minute and his list of felonies expanding rapidly. Despite the growing list of legal issues, Simon didn't seem to learn his lesson. After the May 1990 incident, immigration authorities got involved, but Simon's run-ins with the law didn't stop. By January 1991, he was committing credit card fraud again, and in April 1991, an immigration judge finally ordered his deportation. By March 1992, Simon was out of the U.S., or so it seemed. In a twist, Simon had previously applied for the Special Agricultural Worker (SAW) program in 1988 under a different name, conveniently omitting his criminal record. This maneuver granted him temporary residency, which eventually led to permanent residency, right after his other identity was deported. For over 2 decades, Simon enjoyed a relatively smooth life in the U.S. until December 2016, when he applied for citizenship, possibly thinking his past had been forgotten or unnoticed. However, the government was not about to let bygones be bygones, rejecting his application due to the red flags from his temporary residency. Undeterred, Simon tried again in December 2020, even reaching the interview stage of his naturalization application, only to be denied once more due to the irregularities in his residency status. His persistence didn't end there. He filed a court motion in October 2022, right before marrying Porsha, challenging the denial. But again, the government stood firm, rejecting his plea. By March 2023, Simon was back at it, filing another plea for citizenship, only to face rejection once again. It's a bit baffling, really. Either Simon was overly optimistic about his chances, or he had the most unfortunate legal advice. This saga seemed doomed from the start, a clear case of a legal quagmire that Simon couldn't navigate his way out of. Alright, let's get real for a second. When you're in the running for citizenship, it's a given that your past is going to get combed through with a fine-tooth comb. Kind of like the climax of a mystery show. So, it didn't exactly come as a surprise when the authorities picked up on Simon's crafty little name change and the fact that he wasn't exactly upfront about his colorful legal history. Suddenly, his dream of becoming an American citizen started to look more like a nightmare, with the threat of deportation hanging over his head. And if you thought Simon's troubles were enough drama for a lifetime, think again. Porsha is feeling the weight of this whole debacle. Rumor has it she's devastated by the turn of events. Imagine, they were just talking about expanding their family, and then this curveball gets thrown their way. With a new season of Real Housewives on the horizon, the last thing Porsha needs is more fuel for the fire, giving her co-stars even more reason to target her. But it seems Fallon couldn't wait for the season to start before taking her own jabs at Porsha. Still bitter over the breakdown of her marriage to Simon, which she pins on Porsha, Fallon sees this as retribution. She's convinced that Porsha's interference is why Simon didn't try harder to salvage their relationship, despite their brief attempt at reconciliation. A source close to Fallon shared that she views the current crisis as the universe balancing the scales, and she's not stepping in the way of that justice. This insider went on to say that Fallon has been taking digs at Porsha, suggesting that no matter the outcome, whether Simon ends up behind bars for his alleged scams or gets deported, Porsha might find herself flying solo soon. The chatter online reflects a mix of I told you so's and genuine disbelief. Commenters are calling out Porsha, reminding her that her now husband, who was very much another woman's husband when their paths crossed, has a history of dubious dealings. The general sentiment is one of bewilderment over Porsha's apparent obliviousness to Simon's past, prompting questions about why anyone would be surprised by the revelations. Wasn't this the man whose shady dealings were hinted at by Fallon and an entire online community? Yet, here we are, with Fallon probably getting the last laugh as she watches the drama unfold, seeing it as karma doing its thing in the most spectacular fashion. So, what's your take on this entire mess? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's get the conversation going. And don't forget to check out the next video for more juicy updates.